It's a. I'm
And
trying
it
to
looks
get
like
it.
a causeway leading up to the pyramid there too, with that bottle-shaped
There you go.
thing.
There you go. That's a three-dimensional shot right there.
Yeah,
And
that's really
I've got
interesting.
some.
That is definitely a step pyramid. Where what? Hey, and good afternoon, everyone. By popular demand, David Stig Hansen back with us. Remember, he'd gone to the Eye of Africa, the Richat Structure, and then he went back again to take a look at different canals, lines, previous shorelines. And I'm lucky enough to have another chance to talk with him. Our last interview was a little bit garbled, and for some reason with the time delay, it was overlapping on the voice. So this time we're going to slow it down and really trying to figure out what else is out there besides just to circular what you see the Eye of Africa, quote unquote. And what are the stories of the people who live there? What else did David find? Well, I'm going to ask him some questions that we're going to find out ourselves. You can go over to YouTube, David Stig Hansen, or youtube.com/at STIG Stig. Not a lot of people have been out in this part of Africa or even willing to go and, do what is considered outrageous these days by marching off into the desert in foreign lands and nations. Brave soul in search of information because, it seems like there's a lot more information coming out of our ancient history, our ancient past. So, David, thank you for joining. The floor is yours. And here we go, round two.
Thank you. We got to do round three soon because everything's in threes. And I went to the Richat structure for the third time just this January, February. The first time was right in the middle of COVID. And when I first got the ticket, they canceled the flight because of an outbreak. But yeah, this was the third time. And not only did I go to the Richat, but I went to the Pillars of Hercules as well. And I think it's important when you talk about Atlantis and the connection that Cadiz has. You hear a lot. I have a lot of people contact me and say, "Oh, Atlantis was Antarctica." Okay, not according to Plato, right? What did Plato say? Or let me do my Randall Carlson impression. Go back to what Plato wrote. And sure enough, I heard Randall Carlson say there were chert outcrops in this structure that were being quarried by somebody hundreds and thousands of years ago. I went back and listened, and he did it. He said 1.2 million years ago, and that's like what? Where is this coming from? And I'm going to change it back to something that's not so.
Yeah,
Just a
Stig,
little
could I ask you a
off.
question quick?
Sure, sure.
Like
Now I can see.
the cost of the trip to go out there, you mentioned it was like different levels of pricing depending on COVID, not well, so the last trip that you took, the third trip, I think you were in Spain and then you jumped down into, was it Morocco? And that's why you're looking at Pillars of Hercules, etc. So this time you did a little bit more traveling than just direct like you did the very first trip. So
Right.
like
Both.
give us some costs in terms of just airlines and if somebody's going to go off and do some of their own adventures like this and do some exploration and really start to find out some of these bits of history and like on the ground analysis, what's somebody going to pay to do, take a trip like this?
Things have changed so much when it comes to getting an airline ticket. It used to be round trip quotes. Everything was round trip, right?
Hmm.
And I knew I was going to go to Spain, and I got a ticket one way for $300 from LAX.
Can I dovetail that question in? So,
Sure.
like when you were going, cost of living also includes airfare, but it also includes food. Like I'm
Oh,
thinking you're out in the middle of the desert in Africa here.
it's an
Like what
important
kind of
question.
foods are available? I mean, could you take your own storable foods with you, or can you take something with you to eat on the
You
road there, or
have
how does
to
that
take
work?
your
Can
own
you trade?
food.
Can you barter that for something?
Okay, so depending on how long you stay, like if you're going to be there for over 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
David Brady warns the S&P could nosedive to 1,000 points, erasing 14 years of gains. CEOs like Jamie Dimon have been warning about 70s era stagflation. The 70s were a lost decade for the stock market, but gold and silver exploded higher. From 1972 to 1974, gold gained 240% and silver surged 315%. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Also, Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. No fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now on with the video.
Pay for an extra luggage bag full of your food. Now, if you don't want to go that extreme, you can, of course, water is available. And so I've got several levels of the last trip was just show up. I didn't take everything. I had one bag. I learned my lesson, I about too many bags. And food was one of the things. In the second trip, I filled up one bag full of food and I didn't eat any of it. So you've got to think and you've got to do it right. I would say take your own foods. And when I say that, first of all, there's no pork. So if you're like a pork eater, you might want to have your own versions like salami, pepperoni. They're not really checking for that stuff at the airport. I did have my bags checked the first time. They were asking for a drone, and I gave him a pocket knife, and he suddenly backed away. And he did find my bottle of alcohol. I took some bourbon, and they found that and took it. They wanted the
Of course
drone.
he took it.
Yeah, no alcohol. And I learned how to. Okay, anyways, let's stay focused. Anybody can contact me if they have specific questions, but I was basically dry from alcohol. My first time going there was about, I think I scheduled a month. I had to come home a little early, so I changed my flight. That first trip in 2022 was literally like $1,000. What you need to do when you go there is don't hang out in the capital of Nouakchott, because first of all, every day is a hotel stay there. And you don't have to stay in a hotel. You can go there and sleep on the sand when you're out in the middle of nowhere. I did always stay in hotels, even out in the middle of nowhere at the Richat Structure. Wadan is the closest place with a hotel room. And that was $50 a night, I think,
Yeah. So what's the value of trading food for something versus actual physical money in that? And, would it be more cost effective to bring food as a tradable versus actually, converting the currency into something to pay? I'm just curious.
I've taken more than food. I took the drone. That didn't get swept up by my host. But what did get swept up was the Cadillac of power banks. They have the USB outlets, campers, off-gridders. Anybody who's in a camper has one of these things. And I
So
can't
that was
remember.
tradable, a power bank. Like you could get a week stay somewhere for taking a power bank over
Right,
there.
right. Okay, so I was in this one city named Attar, and it was outside of the Adrar Plateau. You need to get to Attar, and there's different. If you can afford the wait, because flying into Attar is possible from Paris. One way is $700, $1,400 round trip, but you have to wait a week, right? So you have to entertain yourself for 7 days in the Richat Structure. I could do it, I promise you, but I don't know about anybody. Just most people want to get in and get out. But flying into Attar is a bonus. But my point is that I stayed there, and when I checked out, I left that same unit with that guy. His name is Justice. He owns Bab Sahara. He has a map that is pretty there's people on the street selling his map. So his map pops up. And I have his map. And he has a nice hotel in Attar. And the other thing I can remember about his place is the mosquitoes. Oh my gosh. Another thing I would take is mosquito, like chargeable mosquito repellents or killers. They have really large mosquitoes there.
Oh,
Big
wait a
bats.
second. Mosquitoes in the desert.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know why, but yes, there are water sources, and this is a hotel complex with trees, and yeah, there was mosquito nets in the room, and they were serious mosquitoes. But it gets pretty cold in February in the Sahara Desert. Beautiful stars, by the way.
Yeah, speaking of stars, going back to the time of Solon, who precedes Solon? Because I know you were doing a deep dive in history there. Okay,
Well,
we got
that's
the main characters playing there, but
Solon's first in my timeline.
okay, so there was nobody that preceded Solon telling the stories of Atlantis then.
Oh, I mean, there are other sources for Atlantis, Oh yeah, I got my Herodotus map right here. Yeah. So is it upside down? Of course it's upside down.
No, no, it's not. Or
Here we
is
go.
it?
There we go. How
No,
did
that
it
looks
get?
correctly up.
I just got to
Yeah.
unroll it. So this is the side that matters is here, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with this map is it's not as good. I found a better one, but I did get it. That's Spain. That's the Pillars of Hercules. By the
Hmm.
way, two things about the pillars. If Plato said it's beyond the Pillars of Hercules, so it's on the other side here. Number two, he talked about the city of Cadiz. I did go there, and it is the oldest city in Western Europe. So when anybody tries to come to you, oh, it was Cuba, it was this, it was that. I don't think so. I think that you should. Plato said it was one beyond the pillars. Now think about a Greek guy pointing towards Africa. He doesn't know where Cadiz is. He's never been there, right? But he knows it's that way. So when Plato said it's beyond the pillars of Hercules, meaning it's damn west. It's so far west. The pillars of Hercules is the door to the unknown. It was the door to the Atlantis, the Atlantic Ocean, and we didn't know what was. They didn't know what was beyond those pillars. So it was the gateway to the unknown. And when Plato makes reference to that in his writings in Critias and Timaeus, he's talking about it's that way. It's west, westward ho, right?
Hmm.
So I think that people try to misread that. And by the way, there's a German guy, Michael Hubner, who passed away, but before he did some research on all the different criteria of what Plato wrote. And he put it all on one globe, and it points right there to Morocco. So when people say, there was a second pillar of Hercules, don't you know? Over there by Israel. And they start talking about Greek islands and sunken island. They're talking about the whole, oh, Plato didn't mean 9,000 years. He meant 900 years. And it's all these things. I've heard it again and again and again. And people contacting me trying to tell me this and that. And I don't want to argue. I just want to go with what I know. Plato said the pillars of Hercules. Ask AI. There's no other pillar in mainstream. If there was a second pillar of Hercules, by the way, the other pillar of Hercules is San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge. Those are the pillars of Hercules for California. So there's other pillars of Hercules, except the pillars and Hercules. It's damn the Rock of Gibraltar and Jebel Musa. And I did a great video of me being there, pointing at both mountains. I was quite proud of that shot. I got the shot.
Yeah, like you
But
visited some caves right there as well. I mean, how
there,
much
there's caves.
exploration did you get to go? And like, I know you were going down to a few cave complexes that were not really open to the public, and you were going down. So, I mean, what did you find
I found
relatively?
one.
I mean,
I
how
went into
vast is the
one.
cave network under there?
Well, I don't think it's that cray vast. I mean, there must be something. Gibraltar, the Rock of Gibraltar, has its secrets. I was only there for a day, and I totally missed the Cave of Michael, the a very special light show going on in there where you apparently could see the angel Michael the angel. Okay, the story I'm looking at is, did Hercules break the Strait of Gibraltar and let the waters of the Atlantic pour into an empty Mediterranean Sea? By the way, why was it empty and what created it? That's what I'm thinking about. I'm talking about something super old. And when we're talking about modern day, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years back, that's not really my thing right now anymore. I mean, the Atlantic story is 13,000, right? According to Plato. And anything before that, I'm interested in. I wanted to see those chert outcrops Randall Carlson talked about. That's where I went this last time. I think those are showing things that are over 1,000,000 years old. And that's what I'm looking at. Ancient megalithic terraforming all over this planet. So my main theme now, if you want to focus on the Richat, I think I could say I'm an expert in the Richat structure. But my main theme right now is advanced ancient civilization that was global, advanced global civilization that's now gone. And it was all over the world. I think I've seen it along the Colorado River, these ridges. I'm going to show you some. I've got
Yeah,
new
let me ask.
platforms.
Can I ask you a question? Like we know some of the cities off of Egypt have sunken in, they're below. I mean, there's an enormous amount of cities or what were previously inhabited civilizations, cities on coastlines that are now between 40 and 120 feet deep. And that doesn't matter if it's Japan, in the Mediterranean, but
Right.
I'll stay even off Israel. There's a bunch of cities that are 40 feet deep. Black Sea, there's a huge amount of cities that were previously inhabited 40 feet deep. So that seems to be a range there too, 40 foot. And then you get off Egypt and it goes a little bit deeper to like around 120 foot. So think, 13,000 years ago, if we're going through the galactic cross, we're coming across one of these, younger dryas events. Would it not make sense that if that was one mountain that was ripped in half and that suddenly all that water poured into a low-lying area, which we know is the Mediterranean Sea? I mean, you got to think between those two pillars, what's the width of that coming in there into the Mediterranean Sea? And with that much
14
cataclysmic,
miles. 14 miles
yeah, but
wide.
think about if the Earth really separated 14 miles because of some Earth change or
Mm,
shift on its axis, like a geophysical shift, not a magnetic shift, although they'd be intertwined. But how much would that allow further to spill into other areas? And then what if there's aquifers that are coming from beneath? Not to go on a biblical tangent, but the Noah flood, it was not just rainfall from above with the
right.
breaking of the plane of waters, but water emanated from beneath the crust and filled also. So if that kind of giant cataclysm were to come, is it possible that was one single mountain that you saw there and it ripped and you could actually see where the ripping stretch was and then all the flood waters poured in and there was water from beneath? Because if you go out to the Nubian sandstone aquifer where Gaddafi was also farming the desert, there's
Mm.
thousands, tens of thousands of cubic kilometers of water under that area there. So would it not make sense with that kind of ripping and earth crustal displacement or some kind of cataclysmic shift of the planet's crust that, water would come from beneath as well as from above and spill in? I don't know if you follow that train of
Well,
thought there.
okay. First of all, let me make one thing clear. I don't really believe Hercules was the same time as the Younger Dryas event.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
definitely not. But there's
we're
somehow related with that story
I,
of
I
trying
have
to
a
like
theory about the
superhuman strength.
Mediterranean Sea. There, Lake Titicaca, I believe. If you look at that, there's some theories out there. See a video series called Mind Earth on YouTube. He disappeared. I tried to contact him, but he has me convinced that Lake Titicaca was a mining pit, and that's actually really opened my eyes to something I'm going to show you in South Africa. And I thought, well, how far back can I go in the history timeline of international trade? But we can say maybe the oldest civilization was in the central part of Africa called the Atun culture. I might have that wrong, but if you check out Ali Bai's every history every day of the year, he uses mainstream history in his video and he illustrates it on a map. The first culture that comes and goes is right in the middle of Africa. And that's when I'm like, wait a minute, international trade probably didn't happen in there. Maybe it happened beyond borders. Who knows? City states in Africa. And then we've got Sumeria, and then we've got Mesopotamia, and then we've got Egypt, the Greece. And now we're Roman. Now we have a mental grasp on this ancient history, but then we're like connecting it to the Bible. So I'm
But take a
looking for the
step further
big
back
theory.
then, go pre-Bible, you're gonna
Have
pre-Greek, where you keep going back.
Yeah, pre-Greek, as you mentioned. Well, who was before Solon? That's a good AI question. But I know Solon was 200 years before Plato. Plato claimed to still hold Solon's writings in his possession. So when it talks about Plato was wrong, Plato didn't have this, Plato didn't have that, he had the writings in his possession. There was no telephone game. He studied them when he was a young child. So it was directly from Solon's writing to Plato's study. And he still held them in his possession, meaning I challenge anybody to see these, what I still hold, to prove that I'm not BSing you. It wasn't fiction. He really believed it was true, is my point. And he said so many things, we can get into that, but where should we start, right?
Well, I
Where
want to
should we
start with you
start?
going back further than 12,000 years. So if you're going to go back 17, 18, 22, 25,000 years prior, then what are you looking at in terms of remnants of those same stories of land masses changing,
Mhm.
waters flooding, earth shifts, or whatever it would be? Because if we're going back 25,000 years, we could just boil it down to super simple. Okay, there's a great year somewhere in there. We've passed through it at least once, twice, three times in the last ice age since
Do
yeah.
do you think that the axis of the planet has shifted in 13,000 years? I don't.
You'd have to come to a zero magnetic field for the Earth to actually do something like that.
Yeah, you'd have to have. By the way, another thing that's been introduced to me is expanding Earth theory.
Yeah, that's an
So we don't
interesting
have,
one.
yeah, we don't have our same thoughts, and the way the Richat structure was created, like I said, maybe the Mediterranean Sea was an ancient mining pit over 1 million years old. Somebody was messing with this planet. I think I can demonstrate that. Somebody was doing something over 1 million years ago. Was it humans? I'm not convinced it was. That's the problem here. I don't want to say it was aliens, ET. And then we have the Anunnaki theory,
Well,
ancient
then what would
marine.
it be? Yeah, Anunnaki obviously are ETs of sorts, are they not?
We're talking about Enki, Noah's grandfather. I hate to believe I was genetically manipulated and created, but
You were
I don't
gene
really want
manipulated as a gold mining slave, dude. That's a hard pill to swallow.
to. I'm not making any claims there. I'm just looking at what I see. I'm a Google Earther who happened to have been to the Rashad a few times. And I went to the Atlas Mountains and I went to the Pillars of Hercules. Those are actual mountains. By the way, shamefully enough, I do also Google News, news.google.com. And the first
Oh, it just
section,
made me sick. Like,
I'm so sorry.
sorry, I
Did you
might
throw up?
wait, I gotta take a break here, Stig.
You
Hey,
scroll
pause the
down.
video.
I know we're gonna cancel Stig now. It's horrible, but
Cancel
let's
Stig.
talk
All
about
right.
how to get some. I'm canceled. But we're talking about that whole the way they manipulate your thinking in the main. The third section down is a whole fact check section where you see headlines such as "No, we didn't find the Pillars of Hercules." It's like, where do they get this headline from? They always have this admonishing headline that starts with no comma. There was not an ancient advanced civilization. But regarding the whole, no, we haven't found the Pillars of Hercules. What are you talking about? We know what that represents. We know that that represents the entry point to the Strait of Gibraltar. We were taught this in junior high. And now all of a sudden it's supposed to be these two columns. I don't think so. I think there's two mountains that represent the Pillars of Hercules. The mountains are. I sent those pictures. Maybe I'll share them later. But I found out how we named Gibraltar. I didn't know that until I'm gonna repeat it to you right now. But there's two pillars. The Strait of Gibraltar is 14 miles wide, and the one on the north side is the Rock of Gibraltar, which is a big yardang, by the way. Do I think that was created by Hercules? I don't think so. If it was, it's collapsed. The other side looks like it was created by Hercules. Jebel Musa, which it means Mount Moses in Morocco, is the southern pillar of Hercules. It's a mountain. And when you go there, it's pretty cut and dry. Now, as far as Gibraltar, that stands for Jebel Tariq. Gibraltar, Jebel Tariq, who invaded Spain. And he conquered Gibraltar. And so they said Mount Tariq or Jebel Tariq, Tariq. What I have in front of me is his name, and it means rock or mountain of Tariq. And something about 720, I think that was AD. He invaded Hispania, and so when he conquered that mountain, they gave it that name, Jebel Tariq, and later turned into Gibraltar. So there are two pillars of Hercules, and when Plato makes reference towards it, he doesn't know if it's a mountain or just an opening, but it's the end of the Mediterranean Sea. I think that's common knowledge. Solon knew about going from Greece to Egypt. Solon went on a self-imposed 10-year separation from home. He and stayed in Egypt, and he went to the Temple of Sais, and they had the Egyptian hieroglyphs told the story of Atlantis, and those priests had told him, we've been translating this for years, and there's a history you don't know about. You're so young. That's what Plato wrote. You're like a child. and Solon learned about Atlantis from those priests. So that's the mainstream. Everybody knows the story. Then you've got all sorts of people saying that, oh, Plato had it off, because he was counting months, not years, stuff like that. I don't think so. I think Plato knew what a year was. I think Plato knew and also it happens to correlate with the Younger Dryas event.
So one thing I was going to say to that is, back to the Google, every time you validate a myth or a legend with true fact, you have to actually admit that there's a cycle of destruction somewhere. Every ancient civilization that's found, you have to admit that there was a cataclysm that wiped them out. Then to try to explain that is more difficult than to obfuscate that.
Yeah, they might as well just say you're wrong. Ignore that.
Yeah, because now you're starting to get back in the cycle thing, and I think everybody's innate kind of sixth sense is turning back on, that we're coming back into some sort of cycle. Why is so many people in history now more than ever has been? They just it just turned on. Like everybody feels maybe something's off, and it has to do with historical past events. And people out of the woodwork are coming at me that I never thought would ever say stuff. I think we're coming to this. Something's weird now. I think we're coming into a cycle. Is it the end of the thing? What is our civilization going to collapse? The economic reset, all these things. But is that not the same thing they experienced as well? A cycle.
I think every cataclysm the same? I mean,
is it the same? Maybe not exactly the same on the play out of geologic effects or whatnot, but is it the catalyst the exact same? Electromagnetism or something like this would be the catalyst every single time, but the way it plays out could be differently every single time as well.
Okay, so the Richat structure, was it the city of Atlantis? I do believe it now, but I can't prove it to you. And so I'm not interested in proving to you that the Richat structure was the capital of Atlantis, but what I can show you is there was an advanced ancient civilization there. And when it comes to North America and those Carolina bays, something happened. I think that's what created the Great Lakes. And some big cataclysm happened in a form of, I think, an impact there created the Great Lakes. And then you had the splashing that created those Carolina bays, these shallow bays. But when it comes to the Richat structure, I think I can really clearly demonstrate to you what took that out. If it was the capital and those were concentric rings with water in them, I can show you what took that out, because I think the evidence is right there. I'm going to show you. We should share my screen.
Yeah, and let me ask a question too. Like further north of the Richat structure up there, if that would have been an inland sea, you would be at that shoreline right there, and there'd definitely be harbors. Because we talked the first time, I was bouncing around on Google Earth for several days or weeks after that, looking around those areas too, and it definitely looked like on that what would be northern shoreline, there was a huge amount of like stonework carvings, huge amounts of that all up and down that shoreline. So I started looking for the bigger indentations that would be as a port for today. And like, what kind of remnants are laying around there at the bottom of what would have been the sea? Like going down in soil layer there off the edge of that thing, looking for what's down there as well. Because think about drunken sailors today, they're dropping bottles over the thing. I mean, what's right off the edge of that thing down in if you had some ropes to rappel down in there, Here's
the thing that I want to show you right now. This is
that's a nice resolution image there. Damn.
It's a very nice LiDAR image. It's by Conspiracy of
Oh, look at that off at that like 9 o'clock position. What is that thing?
Yeah. Exactly. What is that? Now I wish I could get it bigger. I can't get in there. Oops. Let me go back. Sorry. I'm dealing with this guy's website, Conspiracy of Cartographers, and I just messed up. So let me find that. I guess I got to go here. We got a color one here. And I did write this guy, and then oh, that's nice. Perfect. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, and that northern shoreline further north after that gap there,
Oh, yeah, and I told him I need to see more, man. But wait,
right up there. That's where the shoreline, ancient shoreline. So to do today, mimic today, like where would the port be? Obviously, it would be where that, where you could guide yourself in and get that protected waterway area there.
We have to ask so many questions. Right here, can you see my hand moving?
I can, yeah. Your mouse cursor,
right here, if you look right here, you've got the edge of the... Okay, first of all, let's talk about what we can see from this new LiDAR shot. I call this the donut. and that's the Richat, of course. And what you see around there, by the way, whatever happened here, I think was part of a cataclysm of some sort. But
Well, it looks like
you know
it.
what?
That looks like the whole area got shoved down, that uplifted. That's
Right.
just the way I would look at it in a simple term.
And by the way, many different projects, and when we talk about shifted axes of the Earth, I think 23.5 degrees or approximately is important. But what I'm seeing here, well, by the way, I just saw this within the last 6 months, and I did a couple videos. This line here, and I'm just going to go to Google Earth. Wait a minute, where are we? Okay, let me find the Richat structure. There's so many things I want to show you. When
Yeah,
I
there's a
when I look at this, and I've been looking at this for 5 years now, thanks to Jimmy from Bright Insight. He pointed out the castle, which is right in the middle. He pointed out the Herodotus connection. I just showed you my map. But when I was studying this, like I said, when COVID hit, I was just studying this full time. I was looking at this line. I'm like, what is this line here? Why is this line so straight near the donut? Well, now that we've got this picture, we can see very clearly that line created a dam going across what I call the Wadan River. This is the city of Wadan, and we have
Oh,
a
there
dam
was a
here.
dam there too. Like, yeah, like you think about
Oops.
over in the Marib Dam over in Yemen, which is about 800 AD to power, give water to the frankincense
Well, who
plantations
knows?
there.
We
Yeah,
know
if there
why
was a
we do
dam
it.
right there, you could channel that water all the way down to that next set of like drop-offs
Well,
and
wait a
then move it
minute.
down.
Wait a minute now. So anytime you see a natural river crevasse, when you see something go perpendicularly across it, I call that a dam or some type of an offspring canal. But this is damming. By the way, I drove through here. I slowed down and looked at this. Over here, down below, north-south dam, a north-south dam going across the Wadan River, and again,
Yeah,
another
that one's very
dam
prominent
here.
there, isn't it?
Very prominent line. But wait, there's more. Another north-south dam up here. Now, I do want to go there. I've never been there before. You can drive over there. There's a lot of ways to get around, but driving across the Adrar Plateau, you can see a line here. Okay, north-south line right here. You can see another one here creating a dam. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see them here. You can see them up here. This is agricultural, in my opinion. You can see them over here. Now, wait, there's more. You can see them over here on this side. Look over here. Not exactly north-south, but you see a bunch of them.
Yeah, it looks like the
Now,
Kalahari Canal is very similar, but they look a
yeah,
little bit more widely spread. Like, what's
exactly,
the width between those
exactly,
canals right there?
exactly. You know what? What's between them right now? It's all bedrocks.
No, but the width, what's the width of those so between each
Oh,
one? Like if you had a Google map
well,
or
I'm
some
gonna
sort of
have to
Earth map, you
transfer
can
it over
measure
to
it.
the Google map. We can kind of see them here. You can see this one here. You didn't notice it before, but
Yeah,
what
that
that means,
LiDAR really popped those out,
LiDAR
didn't it?
really popped it out. LiDAR, I used to think we didn't need LiDAR in the desert, but I was wrong. We need more LiDAR. And okay, let's go over here to the ones that are, I think these are pretty prominent, right? See, you can't see them at all right here.
Yeah,
And the
it's like
LiDAR,
I wouldn't say
the
airbrush, but
ones
they
that
put
are
the
over here.
resolution down so it doesn't, they're the contrast down so you can't see them.
Oh, well, that's another thing. Yeah, of course. I was trying to look at these pictures by the Grand Canyon. I've got this
Mhm.
dual mound system here, but you can barely see it. So I went over to Google Earth Pro. Where is it? It's right here. Yeah, here it is right here. And look how much
Those are
more.
double mounts, aren't they? And then off to the
Yeah,
left of
here it
the like
is.
10 o'clock position, there's something else as well.
Okay, so the position of these mounds align with the mounds. Okay, let me just show you. So as you can see here, that's north. And when you look at these mounds here in the Grand Canyon, this is on the Colorado River. When you put it like that and make them go up, down, straight, I'm going to show you more mounds. Then you look at north. North is about kind of
23 degrees off. It's a ecliptic
exactly.
off, isn't
It's
it?
kind of a maybe you could say
That's
it's a
exactly the
40.
ecliptic. If you do it that way there, that's off the ecliptic, isn't it?
I've got so much more to say about this right now. Let's keep going here. Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I've seen that of sacred sites that are off the.
If you look at that, you say 23.5 degrees.
So you're saying
That's
every one of those sacred sites is off by the
okay.
ecliptic versus being
Okay,
on the
so
direct equator with no tilt on our Earth.
let's call this the ancient equator. And you've got the North Pole right there where my arrow is. I want to make it bigger, but that is near Alaska is the North Pole. So our modern day North Pole is right there. I don't know. You can see my arrow. So
I
that
can.
little shift, if you move that over, if you take this circle that this ancient equator has created here with all these ancient sites that are listed below, including Giza, including Easter Island right there, and I'll talk more about that later. It can shift over. I've done this before. I recreated that circle and I shifted it over on top of it's the same size as our equator. Now, let's be clear about this map. This is not a flat Earth map. It says it right down here, equal azimuthal projection. It shows a north and south pole and all the continents. Now, as far as this circle goes, I've gone in and I've looked it up. It's not a perfect line. I'm not going to lie to you. But what is a nice, perfect start is Easter Island to the Pyramid of Giza. And I did that. I'm going to show you that. Let's get rid of that. By the way, new photos of Sage Wall. Okay. They
Where's that
finally cleared out.
location right there?
That's in Montana. Okay. If you know Sage Wall, okay, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. If you know Sage Wall, I'm trying to find another. Okay, that's a cave in Morocco, right? Don't tell me that's not a face. Look at that. It's almost a perfect face. Sorry, but let's focus on the same thing. North America has its ancient sites, and Sage Wall is the new one to keep your eyes on. There's a lot of these. I don't know what's going on there, but there's a lot of what do you call them? Nubs in Sage Wall. I think that there were multiple projects, but I think what you're seeing here is clearly rocks that are lined up on top of other rocks that are more of a platform. That's not natural. How could it be? And this was just released by Wandering Wolf. I met him at CPAC. So this is your viewers this is probably something your viewers have not seen.
I haven't seen that before either, but imagine if it was a poured type of substrate and like all the erosion off that would be 1.5 million years old right there. So if you're looking at something, you're talking millions of years, that kind of fits. So if you have poured substrate over 1 million years of erosion, that would look like that. Just saying, we're playing devil's advocate here. Yeah, and these types of quarries, stones, like
you call them jointing?
You can't even move things that big today, almost barely with the maximum of our equipment to be able to quarry something like that off and have it as a usable size that big.
This is Utah. And okay, now listen, this is called jointing. I'm just quoting mainstream geology here. And this is called jointing. Ask Ransom. And he was the one who said that's jointing. But the question I have about jointing is
that's too perfect.
How many miles can you go? Now, my other friend says that's the ET took lasers and cut those with laser beams. It doesn't look that straight either. So the question is natural or unnatural? These blocks in Utah, by the way, and that's very close to some other areas that I've been looking at. I found these mounds that I was going to show you. I put them in there.
That's pretty interesting, as a geological.
Let me ask you one question. So this says that these rocks, almost on a DNA level, were they cracked from weathering or a preset DNA in the rock to crack in these straight lines. But how far can those straight lines go and maintain parallel? How do you pronounce that word?
200 feet, maybe 1,000 feet maximum.
Well,
you can't tell me you got square miles of that stuff.
Now, what if I were to say that I could show you where there was a third line set through there, creating triangles? What would you say to that?
That somebody was mapping the Earth far longer and further back in the past than we give them credit for.
All I can say, let me get back to my map. Let me get this out of here. Here by these mounds in the Grand Canyon, let me just. Oh, by the way, Google.
Yeah, that's kind of a strange pattern over there at the 3 o'clock position on the right side of your image. Yeah, right there. That's a very strange pattern.
Those are the triangles I'm talking about. I can show you triangles like that in the Grand Canyon in Utah. See, it just unlocked. It's a big pain in my butt. And by the way, I had to go to the timeline to get these images because what they show on the latest scan is
it's not there anymore, is it? I've had to do the same thing with
right there. You can't
the
even
old
see
ports in Italy I was looking at on the timelines.
That's the mounds, okay? Those are the mounds I just showed you, and all these little red areas are what I believe are quarries. And you can't even see them anymore. So I went over here and I used the Google Earth Pro and I backed it off back to 2012. And now we kind of have a problem because I don't have I have to search for it. But when you zoom in here, you can see straight lines going, maybe not a mile, but there's more than just two directions here. And these lines, in my opinion, right next to the Colorado River, probably ain't. And when I show you what's next to the Richat structure, it locked up again. You're gonna say, yeah, that's impossible. 6 miles long, parallel lines of the Richat structure. Now these don't look perfect, and what's up in Utah also doesn't look perfect. But I believe there were a bunch of different projects going on, and this is the Grand Canyon, and I believe you find these. This is just two directions, but even three directions in ancient quarrying cuts. Now, is it to remove stone? I don't think so. I think what they're trying to do is they were looking for gold. They were using the Grand Canyon. Sorry, the Colorado River is right there. And another
That I
thing I want to
know
mention,
how much gold was taken. I know it's a gold panning area. So, I mean, how much gold's in there really do they have in what they think might be in the rock substrate? Do they have any tonnage values per square mile or anything?
well, that's a hard one to answer, but what I can tell you is that this is one type of quarrying I've discovered, and you can find lots of different projects all the way up the Colorado River. You see straight lines from a distance. Look at that line right there. And we are how many feet up? It looks like a straight line right there. It looks like a straight line right there. So I believe that they were up in these hills above the Colorado River doing ancient placer mining 1 million years ago. And they were just, I think I can show you a lot of examples of that. Um, but I think your viewers really want to see the Richat structure, and I can show you those
Yeah,
same
well, let me
things
ask
over
you,
there.
how big would the machinery need to be to make marks and leave carving marks like you're showing us here? How large would that
Really
equipment need
large.
to be comparatively to our largest mining equipment today?
That series called Mined Earth does a comparison and says, look at the mining that's being done today. And once they break up that rock, they can use it as ore and they can process it. They
Hmm.
go in there with tractors. Here's the thing, you've got a dump. Modern day, our dump trucks full of rubble, full of ore or whatever. Actually, usually it's been processed and it's an overburdened dump. You see it all over Google Earth. Is about 20 feet wide. I can show you some dumps, some ancient dumps in Algeria and Libya that are about 200 feet wide, in my opinion. And maybe not even dumped, but put there unnaturally. I can show you quarries that are about 200 kilometers wide in Algeria. So quarrying was a big deal. I can show you in the Richat structure. Let me go do before we go there. I want to show you South Africa. Do you mind?
No, I've been to South Africa,
Because
man. Yeah, and you got
it's
Lesotho
ready
there. I
to
see
go.
Siren of Lesotho.
That's yeah. That's where we're gonna go in a second. This is see it locked up. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to separate those. Oh, there it goes. It unlocked. There's something I call this. These are called ancient intersections. We're gonna go to first what
The
I
Star
call,
of Adamu.
yeah, the Star of Adam in how to say. Oh, by the way, this is let me put it.
Lesotho. I traveled
Yes,
there
it's in
before.
Lesotho. You've been in there. And by the way,
But I
people,
had no idea of even when we went up to Zimbabwe, I didn't really, okay, yeah, you could go in as a tourist to check out the city there. But I had none of this knowledge really of what we've been talking about. If I knew what I knew back then, oh man, it would have been a game. It
oh
would have been a
yeah, oh
completely
yeah.
different show because it was rather safe to travel around in South Africa back in the early 90s. I tell you, I went to Zimbabwe and it was 10 Zim dollar to $1 back when I was traveling, early 90s, before the hyperinflation. It was just beginning. But that kind of time, South African Rand was like 4 to 1, 4.5 to 1, something like that.
Well, I wanted to show you what I probably showed you before.
I'm just saying I didn't have the knowledge that I have today, and I would have looked at it with a different set of eyes had I.
I've been to the sorry, Angkor Wat twice, and both of those were before I ever met you. And you okay, I always knew about there's something out there, but You opened my eyes in 2013. And then after that, I started to have a new look and wanted to kind of lead towards that. So when I went to Angkor Wat 2 times, I had no clue as to, well, they probably were not built 1,000 years ago, Angkor Wat. It's too perfect. There's too much. I mean, the one thing I noticed about Angkor Wat, and I can't grab it, is and I know you've been there, right?
Yeah.
And so when you go up into that main temple, you've got those windows that have the lathed stone. That was the big that was it right there. That was the main evidence for me was how are they lathing stone back then? They didn't want to talk about that when I was there. Those windows inside that
I do,
main
and my
temple.
big awakening was the relief carvings that were just as far as the eye could see of the most ornate, carved from the top piece of rock down into there with no mistakes and just
No,
the
no,
most exquisite.
no surface is uncarved. Every
No
surface
surface
has some.
yeah, that's the relief carvings wasn't for me. And then you're talking about the lathe stone. I saw that too, but I didn't really register as much as the relief carvings. And then Göbekli Tepe did the same thing. They started from the top of the stone and carved that whole piece off to leave like a little chipmunk and shit.
Yeah,
In your
and
face history that you can't explain, but nobody wants to talk about it.
nobody talked about it, and I didn't have my eyes open enough at the time to really look at it. I was looking at it. I'm like, did we know how to lathe stone? When did we start lathing wood? And by the way, now
Plasma.
I would probably look for machining marks. And I was just over there in San Francisco looking at Fort Point. If you look at my videos, I met a guy named I Am Kairos, and his name really is Kairos. And he's looking at Tartarian stuff and mud flood stuff. And I have to try to have two minds, one that's focused on finding the truth and the other one that's focused on keeping sane and saying, okay, let's take it once, not jumping to conclusions. I'm not that person that's like, it was aliens, that's not me. And so when I went there and looked at that Fort Point, I was pretty impressed. And I'm not too much into that. I do believe that if that seriously was a cover up, that we're probably talking about 400-year-old buildings in the USA with Tesla type technology on the top, technology that was grabbing power out of the air, stuff like that. And we see all sorts of examples of that. There's a couple of channels, John Levi, I'm sure you've heard of him, right? John Levi,
Yep. One of my
and
faves.
yeah, and by the way, because of him, and that's what I was going to tell you earlier, a question you asked about sea levels. We've got these things, I call them ship rocks. And we've got the ship rock in New Mexico, which the John Levi channel, he's the one that introduced that to me. And then I went there's a ship rock here in the Coachella Valley near Palm Springs. And there's some other areas in California that I'm just discovering that are pretty unbelievable. I believe it's ancient mining, but regardless what it is, and the stuff Yonaguni, that's a ship rock underwater, in my opinion. This place up here, what's this North Sea called? There's a structure in there that I call a ship rock. That one aberration.
I'm
You know what I'm
unfamiliar with
talking
that
about?
one. I know the one in the Baltic Sea, but I don't know the one
That's
right.
it, right? So these structures are all, and by the way, go over to Peru and you find a whole bunch of these same structures, like these map rocks, and all these where they've taken the rock and they've carved stairs into them and all sorts of other stuff, and then they cracked in half. I mean, these things have been around forever. So I believe that these are ancient maps or definitely megalithic. Okay, Star of Adam. Let's go back in
Mm-hmm.
there. Now,
Adamu,
I
the
believe
first.
these lines are artificially created. Now, it's not a very clear star, but it has 6 points. It has 6 sides in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I believe that's maybe there's only 5. Maybe it's a
Have you drawn
pentagram.
that out with different lines in there so you could see where the star pattern is you're
I
talking about? Have
have
you
done
actually
that.
overlaid lines on there?
I haven't gotten into much detail here, but some of these lines go on for miles, and I did do that. Let me show you what I found very quickly. Lines in
Oh,
KwaZulu
KwaZulu Natal.
Natal,
Yeah, that's where
and go down there, and you'll see the lines that I
the
traced.
warriors were from.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that's a
Shaka
lot?
Zulu,
You think that's a lot? I got
KwaZulu
to a
Natal. Oh, that is quite a
got
few
to a
there.
I got to a point where I just had to start like saying lots of lines. This is out in South Africa. When you get in here and you see all these lines, oh, that's natural. I'm sorry, but that doesn't add up after a while. I'm going to
Well,
zoom
there's a
out.
lot more that you didn't mark there as well. That's a
Oh,
lot.
lots more. So many more. I got tired of it. I'm like, forget it. Let me just say one thing about this map. Down here, I didn't even mark them. These circular structures, they're not quite circles. Let's go one step at a time. Let's get back to
Well, no,
Google.
continue with your thought. What did you think that was then?
I think that it's ancient mining. They were creating structures to use for like leaching ponds. I think we see a lot of very large leaching ponds. I don't know if you can still see my video of my face.
Yeah, I
Let's
can. We're
go.
smalled over on the right
Okay,
side
cool,
there.
cool. Yeah, good. I just want to make sure because I was using my hands to say anything round, right? Anything round has questions about it. So this a star of Adam is something I found right away, where you have these straight lines that intersect, and you see basically a five-sided. It's not quite an exact pentagon. You've got a little triangle here, and by the way, you've got these other. I don't even get started with these lines in the bedrock here, and whatever created those bushes right there to make those lines like that. Sometimes it locks
Oh,
up.
cattle corrals or something.
Well, we've got our modern day stuff, but then whatever cut through this bedrock here isn't modern day. We've also got this thing here that sticks out to me. I'm going to stop it early. I call it the siren of Lesotho. She's got a big
Oh,
booty.
that's an
She's
interesting
she's
formation
got a
there.
wand. It looks like she's holding a wand out. Now, when you zoom in, you can see these. Okay, it seems to me that they did this quarrying along these lines here. So when we go in there and you zoom right in there, you start to see these straight lines right there along the sides. And I'm going to show you more straight lines, but it seems like they quarry up to the straight line. Now, there's a large triangle outside of Lesotho. We're going to go there and look at this thing here. Now, you can see basically this corner, and over here you got a corner, and then up here you got these lines here, almost like a parallel. It's like almost gutter, not even a
But that
line.
triangular section there and the triangular section to the right, they both have the same. If you zoom out a little bit, you see how they're both triangles. So if you were machine mining something, you would always follow the same trajectory. That's an interesting one there too. Not the line there, but that triangle on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, when we get to the other triangle, you can see another line
Hmm.
here. And they seem to me, this ancient civilization has quarried up to the line and then backed off. Like maybe the machine they used this straight line to go back and forth and dig out all that content.
Well, if you were able to, if we got LiDAR now and you had a much more advanced civilization that was able to apex it to this level of like 20x what we can do today, I'm sure maybe think about it, those lines were drawn where the whatever substrate gold they were looking for terminates at this point. So don't go past this line because gold and substrate, because South Africa, incredible gold producer, but there's usually that gold's 3,000 foot deep. So, I mean, they must have came by and all the stories of the Anunnaki and the 400,000 years ago creating humans, if you believe that, all centers around gold mining operations, refining of gold, that sort of thing. So, there's stories of the Anunnaki, 12, 15-foot beings that had advanced technology. I mean, it kind of all dovetails into what the ancient tales were saying about, but now you're actually looking at some of the technology or the size of some of these operations that are referenced in just myth and legend now. Interesting how you're putting that together.
Well, I mean, you can't deny what we're looking at. And what I'm seeing here is a 90-degree angle. And then there's this little shortcut that comes off of it.
Yeah, you got
Now
a
we're also
cross right
on this
there.
plateau.
That is like a cross, isn't it?
Well, it is definitely a 90-degree angle. And by the way, I wouldn't say that's modern day. That wasn't there. But this road here is like 40 feet, and then it cuts off and goes this other angle. Now, wait a minute. That's a shortcut. Now, there's more to look at over here. But if you want to see another shortcut, I have it right over here. And I just am so lucky I'm able to grab it and show you without fussing. In my opinion, that's the same damn thing that you just looked at, except it's upside down. Now this is
Yeah, you have that cross there again, huh?
I can't control it. Okay, yeah, you have the 90-degree, and then you've got the shortcut. You've got the wider part, and then when you get over here to the shortcut, it's thinner. it gutters out in some places. It cuts through the bedrock. I mean, I don't know who created this, but it's definitely not just 13,000 years old. This stuff's old, man. And you've got these quarries. I didn't even want to be talking about this stuff today, but because this okay, so let's go back over to what I was showing you here, Kolonyama in Lesotho, that shortcut. In addition to this little road, it goes out and that road continues out to here. And so you've got like quarry number 1 that's all smooth, really old. Here, there's this structure. You've got this thing, I call this a nub. Just like the nubs in the stones in Peru and pyramid, but on a large scale. Because you've got a straight line that it follows, but yet you've got this thing stuck to it. See, we're not even talking about the Richat structure, but when we get out here to this end of it, and we see this triangle, literally a perfect triangle, right? The top disappears, but it's also some type of a smelting pit that got breached. And when you say, why is this circular? Well, you know, maybe there was another project where they took that material away, but all I can say is these are houses. I don't think these people did it.
Where's the
These
overburden for all that? That's a huge mining operation. You're talking, you know, what's
you know
the top
what?
of the mountain for the bottom? 500 feet, 1,000 feet from. I mean, that's a huge, 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 huge. I mean,
Let's get out of
unfathomable
South
compared to
Africa.
today's world movement of earth and rock
Let's
and
get out of South
substrate
Africa and I'll show
ore.
you some where I think they put that overburden dumping. Look, let me show you a couple more things before I navigate away. Right now, are we north? Okay, we're north.
Yeah, that's north.
When you go in
Durban
here,
over there, Durban poison.
you
Yeah.
see this little chunk, machinas. There's something I want to show you. I don't see a name on it, so I'm going to call it
That looks
Stig's.
like a pyramid. What the hell is that?
It's a freaking pyramid, David. I'm trying
And it
to
looks
get
like
it.
a causeway leading up to the pyramid there too with that bottle-shaped
There you go.
thing.
There you go. That's a 3-dimensional shot right there.
Yeah,
And
that's really
I've got
interesting.
some.
That is definitely a step pyramid. Where what?
And by the way, the
And
line
it's
that
on a
it goes,
causeway too, as you would enter
yeah,
that
it
thing like
follows
an
the
El
line. A
Mirador walking
causeway. There
up a
you go. A
causeway.
causeway. I never thought of calling it that before, but that's a perfect way to describe that line. If I
That
could.
bottle-shaped thing is the causeway leading to that
Oh,
pyramid.
you're talking about back here. I was talking
Yeah,
about
you would
the
enter, you
front.
would walk up to the pyramid and think about where it's on top of the hill like that. I'm sure the view off there is astounding and viewing some
Right.
celestial, you know,
Well, I was thought you were
alignments
talking
or
about this
times.
line right here.
Oh
This
man, you need to
line,
pin that on the map and put like that is a seriously old pyramid. That's like Bosnian pyramid old kind.
yeah, I agree with you.
I would definitely pin that on the map
Let's
immediately and
get
put
the
that as
word
like
out
a
there.
super feature right there.
It is definitely a mega structure, right? And you can get in here with the 3D and you can, oops, man, I can't control it. You can zoom in there and you can get a view of it from there. Check that out. Tell me that's not a pyramid up there. It's got these levels, these terraces. Oh, and the ancient terracing is everywhere. It's
Yeah,
just
that is for
crazy.
sure an old pyramid there. That is incredibly so older than anything in Egypt. Wow.
Is that a million years old or what? You know?
I don't know, the Bosnian pyramids too. I've been fascinated by that because you know, going over to Croatia and looking around and been
Let's
wanting to get to the Bosnian pyramids for a while as well.